second. Let me just get the recording starting. My apologies. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Today we're going to be learning from Brother Kashif Ali. He will be speaking about how he failed 100 job interviews in a month and what he learned from it. So without all further ado, Brother Kashif, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. I see a lot of few folks are online. Hopefully other people will join soon too. Just if I can do a quick round check in the room. What is you guys are looking for to, what's your guys' background in a way? Like, are you guys in college or entering the job space? Like, what's your background? Like, Huzafa, Shams, Ala, anyone? College, okay, I see. Yeah, chat. High school, college, working at a temp, MB there, mashallah. Good, good. Cool. So let me just start sharing my screen. Let me know when you guys see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. I think I need to have some sort of notes at the same time about the chat. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so this is my story, how I failed 100 plus interviews, and I'll be giving a lot of notes about like Pakistan. So I grew up in Pakistan, so I'll be giving a lot of notes about Pakistan. So let's get started. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So I grew up in Pakistan in a very small town called Chiniot, which is famous for its woodworks. Nothing else is famous. So I grew up there, and I finished my high school there, and my first job out of school. So high school in Pakistan is a little bit like it's 10th standard. It's not 12th standard like USA. So so my first job out of school was carrying weight on my back, like something like this, like 100 kilograms of bag on my back. And other than that, I did some other odd jobs, and I used to see like accountants and clerks in the in Sabzi Mandi, that they used to keep track of like how many bags I shifted from one place to another. And I used to see like, okay, this is a very back-breaking work, and I should do something about it. Maybe I can become that clerk, that accountant that keep track of like all of my labor. So that led me to college, and this is my college where I went to. And when I went to college, like very first day, I was really clear that I want to be that bookkeeping clerk, or that that accounting clerk that keep track of all of the hard works of the laborers. And I was really sure, like very first day when I was going, like, okay, my life will be set after that. Fortunately, I went to school, and on a very I went to college on a very first day. One of our teacher asked us a question. He asked us, like, a room full of 16 and 17 years old, like, so what do you guys think? Like, what is the one thing that is common between you, all of the first year student, and between Bill Gates? So we are in the middle of nowhere in a very small town called Chiniot, and Bill Gates was the richest man on the earth at that point. And we were all shocked, like probably nothing. I mean, but he gave us two things. I think that was the biggest lessons, and we start from this. So that's me on the left side. and that's on the right side. We all know that's Bill Gates. So the first lesson he gave us is like, we all have 24 hours in a day. We don't, I mean, even Bill Gates spent all of his money, he cannot buy a single second extra in a day. So that was a very empowering lesson and a very empowering feeling that despite all the difference in the world, we had something in common, and that which was empowering, that we if we can value time, we can be you know uh, in terms of making some progress, we can do that. I mean, in the hindsight, at retrospect, that was a very unfair kind of comparison, but I think that worked out and we learned that lesson. The second lesson he gave us was that we all have equal abilities, and it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter what language you speak, it doesn't matter what your citizenship status is, what's your the world is very open, and especially your mental abilities. All of the people who other than people who have disabilities almost have the same mental capabilities. And I kept thinking about it, and I mean, I always thought that I can do anything, and that belief led me to do try a lot of different things. And that's the second thing that I learned when I grew up a little bit more, and I figured it out that there is a name about it, and this is not just a pseudoscience. This is fixed mindset, and a growth mindset is a framework which was developed by a Stanford University psychology professor, that there are people who believe that they are born with certain abilities, and there are people who uh, believe that they can grow up, they can learn anything, they can challenge, and they have more practical view to the world. Sorry. So uh, so having that growth mindset is really, really important. If you forget everything I say in this presentation, kindly take that growth mindset. This growth mindset is really, really important to learn anything or get any job or start any company or anything. You need to have that kind of feeling in you, or you need to have that kind of scientific approach to learning anything. So learning those lessons before jumping into the job market was really, really, really important. And having that self-confidence. So after a while, when I finished my college, and when I say college, I mean I finished my 12 year of education. That's what like Pakistan, what happens in Pakistan, like you finish college at 12 year of education, and if you want to graduate, then you go to school, university. So having learned these two lessons, I moved to a bigger city, Lahore. Bigger, very, very big city, uh, like Chiniot was 50,000 people, everyone know everyone kind of city, and Lahore was 8 million people, and I didn't know anyone other than one person. So yeah, that was a lot. So 18-year-old kid moved to a bigger city and have no idea what to do with his life. So and I learned a lot from there, and I wanted to get a job there, go to school there, and you know continue learning from my journey. So, and this is my story in Lahore, where I try to find a job for at least 100, giving at least 100 interviews. So this was what my job market was like. Okay, so this is a story from 2007. There was no internet at that point. Job search was used to start from the newspaper. Walk-in interviews was more welcome. My personal skills were not very existent on a, on a CV. It was not very, apparent, like what kind of skills I have. I had no professional experience, just 12 years of education. So I started grinding. I asked my friend, uh, okay, so there is another thing. I used to speak Punjabi and I couldn't speak Urdu clearly. So and I used to speak Punjabi, which was really prominent into our part of the Punjab where I grew up, and people used to call it that jangli Punjabi. And what does that jangli mean? Like people who live in jungles. So it was a kind of a derogatory slang term. I mean, you can compare it to hillbilly, like in English. So people used to call me that, and I was like, sure, all right, let's see where we go with this. So there are certain discrimination in the way I used to speak, but I started like my job search. I asked my friend, he asked me, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to find a job. He's like, do you have a CV? I was like, what is that? I mean, at the age of 18, like looking for the job, and I didn't know what CV was. But anyways, like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. He made me a CV and, printed my name on top of it. I think he, renamed on his CV or something, but whatever. He gave me a few copies and I started job searching. So every day I used to, travel on the vans and, walk. And I used to give like 3, 5, 7, 8, whatever interviews I can do. I mean, look at the newspaper and devise a way where I'm going, and I will show up for the interviews. And the very first interviews, my hands were shaking. I couldn't speak up, and I thought I was about to pass out, and that was my situation. So, but gradually, the more interview I gave, my confidence came back. At one of those interviews, someone asked me to. So on my CV, on my resume, uh, there was a claim that I can type 35 words per minute, and I didn't make that CV, and I couldn't type. But someone put me in front of a computer. They gave me a chance. It's like, oh, show us, like you can type 35 words per minute, and I was doing like one, pushing one button at a time. And I feel mortified after that experience. I was like, this is not good. I asked my friend to I reviewed CV pretty, closely. I was like, I don't have this ability, we should take this out. So lesson number one is like, don't overinflate your CV ever, have, things that you can really do and actually perform. And so after that, I mean, after everything was done and when I got some money, I got my first computer. And that was my second computer. My first computer was at home. I got my personal computer for the very first time, and I installed typing, um, software on my computer, and I learned to type. And it was hard and everything, because when you try to learn something very new, it gets hard. But that was really empowering, that I learned something by myself with the typing software's help. And after that, that journey continued, like learning something new, and learning that things that interest me. So, and internet, I think, has been the greatest equalizer in the world in this last century and the start of this century. I know this and from last 5 to 10 years has not been very. We have stopped thinking about how great the things are in terms of you know internet access, and how much the world has changed. But like, just I was mentioning that just 13 years ago, internet was not so prevalent in Pakistan, that you have to find the jobs in the newspaper, and you get the news from the television and all of that things. And now everything is like um, in palm of our hand. I mean, if I compare this, this device, my mobile device or my computer device, they are 500 to 1,000% more powerful than the first personal computer that I bought for my own personal use. So yeah, the things has changed a lot, and internet has changed, gave us a lot of freedom to learn new things. So that's the first lesson that I learned from that interview process, to learn new things. The second thing I learned, to tell my story more effectively. And what I mean by that, I mean, I think you need to practice for that. How do you tell your story? I think there is something very unique about every person, and you need to figure that out. For me, having working 2 years in a very backbreaking jobs after my high school graduation and between my college, that was a unique tilt for me on my life. And moving from a very small city to a huge city and learning about like new ways, and I mean, more often time I was lost and everything, I made that all part of my story, and it makes me who I am today. So I think learning your story effectively, it comes with time. I think it's always work in progress. It's a lifelong skill that you need to have if you are going in the job market. And there are some technical, options that I gave you, like tell us. So there is a very first question, tell us about yourself. What they're asking is, read the job description and relate the key points from your previous experience or projects that you put into in this answer of this question. Like if you, for example, if this is a job of a content marketer or content developer and social media, marketing manager, something like that. We all use social media. We all have, probably you have volunteered somewhere, and that will be a good time to bring all that up when you are answering this question. And another answer, it would be give real example of the curveball question. Like a lot of time when people has been asked like, what is your greatest weakness? They like answer that like, oh, I work too hard. That's my biggest, weakness. This is just you're trying to cover up your weaknesses. So I think you should be very, very honest on this one. I mean, don't give them the biggest one, like, okay, you're always late and you can't change that. It's not a bad one. You can give that like, okay, you have some issue with following the time. I mean, as a Pakistani, I used to have a lot of issue with that, but then I figured it out. It's like, okay, this is not good, and start professional. So I improved in that. And so I think I mentioned some of those interviews. So it's like I'm trying to improve that. So I think that's your prospective employer is like looking into your mind, and they are they want to have some sort of a surety that you are open to learning, and you're open to change, and you're self-aware enough to figure out your own weaknesses and working on that one. So that's the intent of that question. And other than that, there are like, I think, 3 other basic questions that you can be very good at that. So get ready for these basic questions. Is there any questions so far? I'm not looking at the chat. I'm just like going on.
No, there are not any questions yet.
All right.
If you guys do have questions, feel free to just drop them in the chat at your convenience.
Yeah, I mean, don't wait for this presentation to end. I have like 100 more slides. I'm just joking. I have a few more. So anyway, moving on, I kept giving those interviews every single day. And at third point, one point in my journey, I think it was like third week of all of this interview journey. So when I moved to this bigger city, I didn't had any, I had traditional Pakistani dresses, and I didn't have any shoes. I had one traditional Pakistani chapel, and that chapel was already 3-4 years old, and it's like the you know the underneath it was like really really already really you know always almost done. So anyway, it's July. I think this was similar days. Yeah, it's also July. So it was third week of July, 2007, and I think I'm going to the interviews, and I'm getting all the rejection in the world. Is like, no, we're not looking for you. And your skill set, you don't have any skill set. You need to learn more. We'll offer you work for free. Yeah, that happens also in Pakistan. It's like, oh, we can train you, and then I was like, no, if you value any of my work, you can at least offer me something in terms of internship. And this is illegal here. I'm so glad here that's like it's legal. But anyway, that was Pakistan job market. And I was so fed up with all of this situation. Like I think that was like 6 or 7 into one of these days, and I didn't had money to catch the bus to where I used to live. And I think I was 4.5 miles away where we used to live. And I started walking on the road, and uh, my the chapel that I was wearing, the shoes I was wearing broke down, and there was already a blister in my feet, and that blister popped, and there was a little bit of blood coming out. And I didn't have money to catch the bus. I asked everyone which was passing through to give me a lift to that place. But I mean, it's Lahore, and it was like really really hot day. I think it gets like 45, 48 to 50 degrees in July in Lahore. If you convert that into Fahrenheit, I think it will be like 115 to 120 Fahrenheit. Uh, so really hot day, and I was like 4 p.m. I'm just walking towards my building and asking everyone to give me a lift, but no one is giving me a lift. And at one point, I kind of broke down. I start crying, and I think it was a bench like right next to the road. I sit down, and I kept you know I was like weeping, and I was like talking to myself as like, is there anything, what is I'm doing is wrong. I'm showing up for interviews. I try to keep up the positive attitude. I answer all of this question. I'm kind of getting to know how to interview, and why is no one is giving me this chance. So yeah, I kept crying, sitting on the side of the bench, and people kept passing by, and nobody cared. And after a while, I stand up, and I was like, okay, first of all, I will never cry on myself again. No self pity. And I will find a job in this city, or either I will die trying on the brink of this city. And that something changed. That day, something changed in my life, and I was like, either I'm gonna find the job, or I'm gonna die in this city. And I kept walking. I stopped asking uh, anyone for the lift. And after 4 hours, when I reached my apartment, it was a small house, and it was an apartment, and it's like the light was off, but I almost passed out. It was so hot. And that changed that day, like my determination and everything. I felt like I grew up in a day. that that 1 month, like leading up to that day, I grew up that day. So that's the fifth lesson. And it's like, it's a very it's a quote that you know uh, learn a lot. Never give up on your dreams. But seriously, never ever do that. Like, if you have some dreams, go after them, chase them. They're totally worth it, and you're totally worth it. So never give up on your dreams, and keep chasing them. And yeah, so that's another lesson I learned. And there are something other that I learned someday that I just shared. And I was too harsh on myself. I was a really, really bad critic of myself. So in terms of when it comes to being critical, there are two types of people in this world. There are some there are some people who bash themselves like mercilessly, and they go into this spiral of self-loathing, and they are the worst critics of themselves, and they always feel inferior that everyone else is doing really great. And unfortunately, uh, this social media generation, this Instagram generation, has done so. I mean, everyone seems to be doing great on the Instagram, but in the real life, you don't know what they're going through. But yeah, there are people who are like always do that, loathe themselves, and they, go in this negative sense of self-bashing. And there are people who always blame others for their failures. They always blame the world, the system, and everything around them. And this is not, in terms of political terms. I mean, the world is not perfect. The world is not a fair place. The system is not a fair place. And obviously, there are not gonna be you're not gonna be handed down everything that given. So there are people who are always self patients. Like they give them they, they they blame everything, but they never blame themselves. Like they never actually learn about themselves. Like if they failed an interview, or if they failed yeah if they fail their interview, or if they fail something in a school or something, it can be their fault too. I think having both of those things, having there is a thin line in between both of these things, the self bashing and self pity. uh, if you keep them, both of the things, in the balance, and you can reach at this level which is called self awareness. There is a very thin line between both of these things. You can be your own worst critic. Like after every interview, I used to analyze like what I learned from it and how I'm going to improve for the next one. And I still do. I mean, any interview, any skill, any situation where I can learn anything, having this learning mindset and being very self-aware, like what I've done and how can I improve. So that is really important, and walking that very thin line is really important. And you need to be very mindful that you're not giving yourself extra credit for your work, and you're not bashing yourself for something which is not in your control. So self-awareness is a big part of your growing, and you're learning more about the world. So that's the I mean, that was, since I mentioned that story, and I always feel like I was too hard on that 17, 18 years old kid. And for the longest time I had this journey and that attitude that I will not cry on myself, and I will not take pity on myself. I was like such a rigid person. And but over the years, the world has taught me more lessons, and I now you know try to walk on this life of self-awareness. I i do have blind spots, and I ask people that I trust to like point that out, and I try to learn from them. So yeah, that's the sixth lesson. And next, it goes without saying, accept your failures and rejections. um, when first I got rejected for the very first interview, I took it like really personally. But after that, like every single day, it get like it gets easy. Like you expect, you know yourself, like, okay, how did your interview go? Are they gonna call you again, or are they gonna give you an offer or something like that? And you know your rejection tolerance level goes up. So I think I did face like more than 100 rejection. I think it was somewhere between 110 and 120 within a month. So my tolerance level to rejection built up. And yeah, there are no failures and there are no rejection until unless you learn some lesson from them. And this is the way of also Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, failures and rejections are failures, I would say, are celebrated. You need to learn more, and uh, you need to try new things as fast as possible and fail early, and move on to the next thing. So accept your failures and rejections. And then there is this code or this thing that uh, I really like. In the school, they teach you a lesson first and they take the test. In the real world, life will test you first and then give you a lesson. And honestly, when if you don't learn from that lesson, life will keep giving you that lesson and keep testing you, giving you that lesson. So be a good student and learn from life, be a student of life, which is really, really important. So, and I'm like ending towards, this whole journey. I think own your story and, be proud of who you are, where you come from. For me, coming from this underprivileged background, and I don't want to paint this like a very, very bad picture. I had like my parents did their best to raise me, but things were tough. And I mean, we were from a lower middle class family, and I had this bigger dream of doing something else more than um, farming or on the woodworks. I think you should own your story. You should learn to tell your story, and you have something to. You need to have something that motivates you. You need to success your. You need to celebrate your successes. You also need to celebrate your failures. When I say celebrate your failures, this is one of the examples. I'm telling a story of like how I failed 100 times, and there are people, 5, 7, or whatever the number is, the listening, and celebrate your struggles, background, and it's like just own your story and be the hero in your own story. And I, and keep learning from them. And this is this one quote that I used to like talk to myself, and when I was going through that bigger, this testing phase of my life. And whenever I go through this test, uh, I have this. I don't know who said this, but it's actually from Urdu, and I translated it here for the English. It's like I used to say, "My land was deeper than yours, and my sky will be higher than yours." And who are yours? I think I don't know. These are some imaginary people, but if it helps you out to have this kind of attitude. And when you go into the interviews and you look at the people and you see, okay, where they are coming from, where I'm coming from. So you're having that kind of attitude to in your own belief. So own your story and tell your story loudly, clearly, and don't be shy about that. And the next thing was focus. I was applying for any job that I can apply for. I was looking for work, and I really, really, really needed the job, any job. And but after that, I learned the focus is really, really important. Focus is the and right now, and focus is being is getting more and more important because we live in a very short attention span world, and we cannot a lot of people cannot focus more than 30 seconds to a minute. Or I mean, if you are really, really focusing all of your energies 20 to 30 minutes, that's the max focus period. And you need to really focus on the bigger goals. And I think it is for me, that was a very important part. So when I did like 100 interviews, and after that I realized if I've been more targeted in terms of instead of quantity. If I focused on quality, I might have gotten a job very, very early on. So after learning all of these lessons, some of them before in that 1 month, some of them after that month, or some of them in between, I finally got a job after those 100 rejection. I um, got a job as a customer care representative, who used to take order uh, for anyone who was calling for the food orders and dispatch to the a local branch of that area. Yeah, so internet was not there. Now we order from dashboard and everything. There was used to be call center where people used to call and order their food. So after that, I got my first job there. I learned to speak. I mean, I learned to speak like take at least 200, 250 calls every day to order people's food and, talk to people in a very, and there was a script and in a very, uh, you know, in a manner that, makes sense to everyone. So I kind of learned to speak from that job. After I did that job, and unfortunately, I didn't get into the school, my dream accounting school, and that was good for me also. They asked me for like 200,000 rupees upfront for 4 years of education, which was not enough, but that I didn't had anything that time. So I didn't get into that school, and I kept doing this job. But after a year and a half, I went back to my hometown, and that I had this uh, the fire in me that I knew like, okay, I can do much better than that. So I learned some HTML, CSS, Google Analytics, and social media, and I started my first website, and that website helped me, for next few years. That kind of, and I got really, really interested into journalism, and I did my master's in communication. And before doing that, I failed 2 times in like graduation level in English. I think I failed 3 times in my whole educational career, and all of the time was in English. English was another big one, and there is a whole another story how I learned to speak, or I learned to communicate better in English. Uh, so after doing that, I did the communication degree, and that's where the focus part really really comes in. Like after graduation, I applied for 6 jobs, and I was really targeted, and I was really choosing like what I want to do. And since I had this, this experience of giving 100 job interviews, I was really good at giving interviews. So I applied for 6 jobs. I showed up. They all of them asked me to, come on, in person to give the job interview. I went on to give the interviews, and I got 5 offers out of that. So and that hard time, like 4 or 5 years ago, which I was thinking was like really uh, I think it was after 4 years, yeah. And I was thinking that why I'm going through this hard time. This is unfair to me and everything. That taught me so much that, I mean, after that, my focus was clear, my interview skills were better, and I got the 5 job offers out of 6 interviews, and I was seen as this rising star in journalism industry of Islamabad, like the capital city, like who went from this to this, like from 5,000 rupees per month to 50,000 rupees in 6 to 8 months. And so I jumped a little bit, a lot when I was in the spot, which was like, okay, this is a good entry point and a good place. So then after that, I worked as a journalist for 5 years, and moved to San Francisco Bay Area 4 years ago in April 2016, a little bit over 4 years ago. There was $169 in my pocket at that point, and that lesson that I learned from that 1 month of interviewing kept, helping me out. I mean, I had a new immigrant experience. I washed dishes in Tenderloin, in Pakwan restaurant, in all of that restaurant, and on John Street. I used to live in Tenderloin also. I didn't know anyone in San Francisco, but I made my way here, and you know, then I, decided to work in tech after, switching from journalism. And there is another whole backstory to that, like why I decided to switch. But then I decided to go to the coding boot camp, and I'm just like speeding it up right now because there is a whole lot here. Also, like the first year of my struggle, where I come from, uh, washing dishes to, get into the boot camp, and learn, dropping from the boot camp once and then going back and learning and finishing that coding boot camp, and then getting this internship at Adobe. So I also, I forgot to mention that I got the scholarship. I mean, from Adobe, I reached out to all six, seven, boot camps, and my pitch was really simple. I was like, "Hey, I'm really new to the the country. I don't have a lot of money saved in the bank, and I'm like trying to build my credit, so I cannot even borrow money from student loan companies. So if you have any scholarship, I'll be happy to learn. I have fire in my belly, and I want to prove myself, and I just want to learn about coding, and because I was really interested." So six of them rejected me outrightly, but seven of them, get me in touch with Adobe, and Adobe has this internship plus scholarship program for people coming from the non-traditional background like myself. And so they, give the, they gave me the scholarship, they paid my fee, they gave me a little bit of monthly stipend, and I dropped out once from the boot camp, then came back and finished the boot camp. Then I interviewed in a few teams in Adobe, and uh, finally got one offer from Adobe, and joined the internship and converted into a full-time job. And then I worked for them for almost 3 years, and I just left in start of February. I started this company called crmbase.io. I'm working, I'm emulating this experience of learning from the boot camp, and I'm a little bit of background to CRM base. When I um, joined Adobe on the very first day, I only knew one thing about CRM. I got got into a CRM team which was working on the customer relationship management profile. That CRM means customer relationship management profile, custom relationship management software. And what does that mean, and what does that entail, and what are those softwares are like? I had no idea. So I took that another, boot camp. I learned a lot during that internship, and performed and contributed actually to the team in those 3 months that got converted into a full-time position. So I'm trying to emulate this idea, this my whole journey. So someone who is coming from a non-traditional background, who are not was not interested in tech, or was not trained in school or anything, even if they're in high school or something, they can learn about CRM industry. And it's a very, since it's a lot of enterprise customer use it, it's not a very open university, and there are not a lot of helpful content available, like how to get started and how to get into this industry. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create learning pathways for the people from any background to come into CRM industry, learn about it, and eventually, I mean, they can get a job in tech, or they can learn to they can learn to manage their business better. I mean, it is also very good for entrepreneurship. If someone is doing their e-commerce business or something, any company who's doing more than 10, 50, 100 transaction a day or a month, they will eventually be moving on to uh, you know CRM. So it will be kind of that learning starting point for that. So right now, consolidating all the advice from last 13 years, the things has changed. The 2020 has been a huge curveball for everyone, and there will be a lot of things that will change. The future of work will change. The professions will change. First of all, the universities and their value proposition has been challenged very greatly. I mean, it's like on the Zoom, and does it really worth to pay $50,000 to, you know, see the live stream? You can have much better option outside the internet, on the internet. So universities will definitely struggle to survive this. There will be a lot of other people who will be struggling to survive this. And another massive digitalization and uncertainty is also creating new opportunities, and also creating, it has definitely has its own challenges, but it will change, world. And I don't know if it is going to be a good or a bad way, but it will change the world. I have like one thing for sure, and that, which is like for my positive attitudes, like we will get through this pandemic for sure. I mean, if we see on a larger scale, on a human scale, in last 5 to 10,000 years of recorded history and everything, I think the disease as humanity, we have seen most of that, and we survived that. And if you look at the more on the cosmic scale, we survived as a Homo sapiens. We have survived like 5, mass extinctions. So I have no worry about that we will not survive this pandemic. I mean, we will survive that, and it is really but it will change our world. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking mostly about in terms of how we used to live. And I mean, there is definitely the other part of that human part of it, which is I'm not talking about. It's like, this is a tragedy, for sure. Like, people are getting sick into and dying, and there is definitely a misery part of it. So I think this whole, the future of work and professions, it has sent into this chaotic world. Like, I think people will be changing their professions much more frequent with the massive digitization. And machines are getting into learning the keep trying to learn those tasks which we do every day. And there will be massive digitization in next 10 to 15 years. And the concept of singularity is out there. And these thoughts are derived from, you all know Harari, if anyone have heard about him. He wrote 2-3 books on about it: Sapiens, Homo Deus, 21 Lesson for 21st Century. So I will highly recommend to read all of these 3 books, if anyone wants to get the kind of a peek of, get the glimpse of the our history, and get the glimpse of kind of have some idea of the future. I think the career change here is already very common. People are changing their career more often. I know tons of people, because I went to the boot camp, and who has changed their career from a right after going coming out of Navy, or right after a huge successful time, or a big tragedy in their life, or getting fired from the job, or not finding a job. Like, the career change year are very common right now, and people are already changing their career. And yeah, so these are the future of work will look like. I think a lot of people are pushing into this remote world fantasy, that we will not be able to meet in person. And I think it will be it it I think it will be more of a hybrid world. I think the big offices will still exist there, but companies will be more open, and people will be more open from work from home. And I'm saying, when we get through this, ultimately this pandemic, I'm talking about that time, I think there will be more of a hybrid world. It will not be completely digital world right now. I think I I don't want to live in that completely digital world. And I think people also have realized in past 2-3 months, they also don't. I mean, there is something about having that human connection, talking to someone face to face. I would have loved to have this conversation in person. Like, even if it is 1 person or 10 person or 100 person, and this I think there will be more of a hybrid world in this, and we will go from this side. And the last lesson, see the bigger picture on the cosmic scale. Plan a little bit longer, 5 to 10 years. Have that 5 to 10 years. And it doesn't have to be like everything carved into stone. Like you will do this thing on 30th of July, and it has to be done of that. There are a lot of things that in not anyone's control, and there are things that in your control. So focus on the things which are in your control, and have the bigger picture, and keep going after your goals. So these are the 10 lessons that I learned from my 100 rejection. This is kind of a recap of that. We all have 24 hours in a day, have a growth mindset, learn new things, try new things as much as you can. Learn to tell your story very effectively. Never ever give up on your dream. Try to harness the power of self-awareness. Learn from your failures and rejections. Own your story. Be the hero of your own story. Be the protagonist of your own story. And just going back from the self-awareness part, I think I don't know how many sisters, how many girls are online on this, um, meeting, but I think a lot, when I was talking about self-pity and self-loathing, I've seen like girls are really, really, really hard on themselves, and they are very critical of themselves. And I always talk to them as like, maybe self-loathing is not the best way to think about yourself. There are, there is self-awareness, and you need to have that kind of confidence on yourself to, go to the next level. So own your story, be very focused, and see the bigger picture. So these are the 10 lessons that I learned, and that was the recap. If you forget everything from this, just remember these three things. I think that's the gist of it. Having the growth mindset, being self-aware of your shortcoming and learning from your mistake, and focusing. So if you forget anything from this, what I said, if you forget my story and everything, just remember these top three things. These are really, really important. They will carry you through to the next level. And that's about it. You can find me on LinkedIn. These are my two public profiles. I have Facebook and Instagram, but these are very, restricted and family use only. These are two platforms that you can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. On Twitter, and my website, Ali Kashif, it is like on a development phase. I mean, right now it's my portfolio from my software days, but I've been converting into a blog, and writing, telling my more part of my story and sharing more and what I've learned. And I do a lot of challenges of learning. So yeah, keep maybe after 15 days or a month, it will be come back online in a different way. Right now it's just a portfolio, but meanwhile you can reach out to me if anyone needs some help. I'm always open to help on LinkedIn, on Twitter. These are my handles. Feel free to follow me. And that's about it. That's the end of my whole presentation. Let me see if I have any questions.
Yeah, somebody actually asked, what inspired you to take the leap of faith and leave Adobe to be a full-time founder and CEO for CRM Base? Because there's obviously the factor of job security and what have you that comes in mind.
Yeah. So that wasn't an easy decision. You all have learned, you all have listened to me talk, mentioning that how hard for me the first year of, being in USA was, and I worked really hard to get that job, which was a pretty secure job, and I was really liking the amount of care they were putting in my learning and everything, and having that financial independence also, which is really important. So it wasn't an easy decision. I think there was a lot of factors into it. I think coming from the journalism background, I really needed to be, impact is one thing that drives me the most. So I mean, I enjoyed working for Adobe for 3 years and I learned a lot from there. But I was more driven by impact, and that also made me choose journalism, and that also made me start this. And so that was a big factor, generating positive impact in this world on a bigger level, and creating something complete scratch that, like, which I don't know which way it's gonna go. Like something like startup has more than 90% of startup fails, and that's okay. That okay. So so impact was the biggest one. Uh, I think timing is also the biggest factor of all. I mean, you have learned from all of my, listen to all of my story. I never was in financially ever in the situation to start something on my own. And I mean, I was financially responsible when I was in Adobe, so I had some savings, and I know that when I was making that decision, okay, I have like this 1 year worth of savings, and even if I live in San Francisco, I will be fine. And that that was really helpful being in that space. And yeah, so this is that kind of that was my thought process too for the leap of faith. The biggest motivation was impact and the financial security that gave me that peace of mind. And other than that, I don't have a lot of responsibilities right now. I'm still single. I don't have family responsibilities. All of my family is back in Pakistan. I still help them out. So I was in this position which was an ideal position for me, and I made this jump before that. And I left Adobe in February, and in March, this pandemic hit, everything shut down. World started to fall into its overhead. So yeah, this was that. But I never thought of going back. I just like, sure. I mean, now I'm on a on this journey, and I need to finish this and see where it goes and see this thing through. So there wasn't to quickly like answer in one line. There was not only one factor, there was a lot of factor, but it was a very educated decision. It was not a spur of the moment decision. It was like I put a lot of thoughts into it, and then I left Adobe. Hopefully that answers your question.
It seems like there's a follow-up. Since you have made the decision to transition, has the experience matched your expectation of working in the startup world, especially now with COVID?
So, I mean, the things have changed dramatically for sure, but I think my okay, I'll answer that later. So I think there is so much uncertainty in this, and honestly, I went into a little bit of a depression phase after this COVID thing started spreading and everything. But the reasoning was still give me and still drives me and keep me going on this path. It was things will improve for sure. I mean, the humanity has seen worse than this, and we managed to bounce back as a human being. So, but it is still really hard to reach out to people because communication is much more than just talking to your computer screen or just seeing people digitally. And so it has its own challenging, and the transition of being your own boss, I think that was a little bit of a, it wasn't a huge challenge, but it was definitely a challenge. Like to be, I mean, I worked like 12, 13 years of my life, in different jobs, and taking looking at someone else for the leadership, and going through that. And and being your own boss is just like, then people look at you, like what you gonna take, what you gonna build. Or so that was definitely a little bit of a transition to find the answer within yourself. And has the experience matched your expectation of working in the startup world? So far, I think it's challenging for sure, but I think it's worth it so far. I'm super fulfilled. I mean, I had that, discussion to myself, like, what if, like, you know, if someone, like, if I die right now, like, if I, God forbid, if, for example, if I have this, COVID, and, I eventually die for that, like, I mean, I'm like really happy with my life, and I'm working on something which I really like, and which will be definitely a personal tragedy and a tragedy for my family and everything. But I think I'm like really content with my life. Alhamdulillah, what I've the things that amount of things I've tried and the amount of progress I made. So I'm not like super successful and everything. I'm on going towards that way. So, but I think in a way I'm kind of full. I think I'm fulfilling my potential, which is like a more important thing to do, and a lot of us don't do that, which is you know not good. So yeah, in a short answer, it will be, it's challenging, but I think it's totally worth it. And if I have to do it all over again, I would do it a little bit earlier for sure. Shakir says, for those who are looking for a stable career, would you recommend joining a developer bootcamp, and are other able to get scholarships too? I mean, there are tons of scholarships available online. Microsoft has started this apprenticeship program where they also, uh, get someone from a beginner level, and it doesn't matter how you learn to code, and then they can get into the bootcamp world, or get in. And there has been cases when people have without getting into the boot camp, they learn to code, teach themselves how to code and get a job in a big organization. I think you need to find your motivation, Shakir, to, like, if you want to have a stable career, like, do you have a stable career right now? And if you think that after boot camp you will have a stable career, I mean, what do you mean by that stable career? Like, how do you define that? Because in development, if you're going into the software world, there are new things every other day, and every day that you need to learn, and get into that. So there are scholarships available, to answer your question, and there are tons of boot camps available. I think you need to really work on your why, like, why do you want to do that? And I think really dig deeper, and I think you'll get the answer of and this is definitely a challenging journey for sure. It's not changing a career. If I remember correctly, you mentioned that you've done your MBA, and I'm not sure if you're currently working or looking for a job or something, and what's your situation is like how much responsibilities you have. Like, we come from this background, like, when we have a lot of responsibilities, so I always think about that. But eventually, I mean, if you know how to tell your story, you can get internship and scholarships at the same time. I want to launch my own startup too, but that's a big leap from leaving a steady income working at company. I also don't have the funds, tech resources needed to launch it. Yeah, I mean, you are that position, but that's the thing also. But you still have something. I mean, you have a master's degree in business administration, and you have this, the business side of the things. And maybe you can try some tech resources independently. Maybe you can try to learn code by yourself and see how do you like it. And if you don't like it, the tech part of it, and it is actually the hard part, finding that tech, uh, you know being that tech savvy to launch your own company. Maybe you can find someone as your co-founder. Go to the meetups, and I know this is a cookie cutter standard voice, going to the meetup, but right now nothing is that of that sort is possible. But try finding someone who is uh, you know already tech savvy. They have like 5+, 2, 3, 5+ of experience working in tech. Either it's like they learn to code or something like that, and or you can jump into this world also, which is more challenging. You'll be giving away your stability and your steady income and everything, and learning from everything from scratch. Yeah, so there are tons of different ways that you can go from this side. And yeah, hopefully that answers your question. And if it doesn't, like, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or um, Twitter, and we can maybe we can fix a time and go more deeply on that side. Is there any other question? Thank you, Friba. I hope I can see you guys. It's like working in a silo and talking to my own self. So it's definitely a strange experience.
Thank you, Kashif. I really do appreciate your time. Jazakallah khairan. It's been really great hearing about all of your experiences and your story. I think if there aren't any further questions, that should wrap up for today. We have your LinkedIn in the chat. If anybody would like to connect with you, and you guys can move on further, inshallah. But Jazakallah khairan. I really do appreciate your time and the incredible story that you had to provide for us today.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention that it was one of my first slide. I think I deleted at some point. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and thank you so much for hosting me. And I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Allah Hafiz.